What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media, and welcome to another episode of Path to a Million podcast. This one is an extra special episode. I've got one of my heroes, my mentors for business, Mr. Cameron Herold. Cameron, for the people that don't know who you are, please introduce yourself.
Hey, Nick. Thanks very much. I appreciate you having me on. God, introduce myself. I guess I've been known recently now, the last 5 or 6 years, as the CEO Whisperer. Yeah. I had the publisher of Forbes magazine has seen me speak a number of times and realized that I was whispering in the ears of all of these successful CEOs and entrepreneurs globally, and he kind of gave me that moniker. But I was groomed as an entrepreneur. My dad and grandparents groomed the three of us in our family to be entrepreneurs. My brother and sister and I, all for the last 15, 20 years, have each run our own companies. All we've ever really known is the entrepreneurial space. So when I was 21 years old, I had 12 full-time employees in my company. I went all through university owning my own business with employees. When I graduated from university, I joined the head office of a group called College Pro Painters. And I was on the executive team of that group, started recruiting, training, and coaching franchisees. By the time I was 28 years old, I'd coached 120 entrepreneurs. So I was in the coaching space 30 years ago before it had even really gotten started. From there, I opened up the West Coast of the US for College Pro. Then I became a partner in a group called Boyd Auto Body in the US, but known as Gerber Auto Collision. I left right as we took that company public. I was then hired as president of a private currency company. We built and sold that company. And I left there and came into 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I was the 14th employee when I joined. I came in behind the scenes to coach the CEO and to teach him how to franchise and grow the organization. When I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. We were operating in 330 cities, 4 countries. We ranked as the #2 company in Canada to work for. We've landed 5,200 stories about our company in the media. And that was 13 years ago. I left there 13 years ago this month, or next month, and started coaching entrepreneurs and started coaching 3 or 4 different entrepreneurs in Canada at the time, and all of them started to do very, very well very quickly. A couple of them ranked as #1 or #2 to work for in their province, and people started kind of pointing at me, wondering how I was involved in them as well, and they realized that I was a bit of a lightning rod and had been coaching people through that success. So that's what I've been doing for the last 13 years. I've worked in 26 countries. I've done paid speaking events on 6 continents, and I've written 5 books on entrepreneurial growth and the systems on how to scale companies. And then recently I started a podcast called the Second in Command podcast, where we only interview COOs, and I have an organization called the COO Alliance. So that's me.
I was following along as you were doing your checklist, and I think you hit everything. You hit everything that I at least know about. So did a good job.
That's a good, quick little bio. Oh, and we were on Oprah.
And you're on over, right? The other little tidbit that I thought was important was on that 1-800-GOT-JUNK. You went from 2 million to 106 million. So that seems like an important piece.
Yeah, 2 million to 106 million, and 12 cities to 330 cities. Yeah, there was some growth, and we did it with no debt, and we gave up no equity.
And you're already walking after a hip replacement like a week ago.
Yeah, I don't know if people are watching or listening, but I'm 18 days from a full hip replacement on my left hip, and I'm walking without a cane. I get to a point in the day now where I'm a little tender, and I'm realizing I should maybe still use the cane because the bone is still fusing together, but I'm walking really nicely, and I'd say pain would be a 1 out of 10. So I'm really thankful.
Very good. My mom just had that same thing done. So
yeah, mine was an overuse injury from a lot of long distance running. I did a marathon 4 years ago, and I think that finally did me in.
Yeah. So the 5 books that you mentioned, I've read all of them, I think, except for maybe The Miracle Morning. But man, the thing I love about them is I like to do Audible, and they're definitely like books that you can listen to, absorb most of the information. I feel like Double Double you probably need, and Free PR, you probably need to actually like buy the physical book and like take notes and like write things down.
I think,
but like Meetings Suck like was such a help for me when it came to just like how to run meetings. And so I just can't recommend people to like check out your books and read those enough. Every one of them is great.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs and Vivid Vision. You can listen to both of those. And then I would say Double Double, Meetings Suck, and Free PR. You need to have the hard copy as well. Yeah. I would listen to it and scribble notes because it's really, those are how-to books more than
Yeah.
anything. I'm teaching you the actual systems on how to do it in very easy to do ways.
Exactly. That's what and that's the thing I think I like about the books the most is that it's not like you give a 30,000 foot view and then I have to go figure it out. It's that there are like bullet points on here's exactly what to do.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if you want, we can link in the show notes. I'll send you 2 chapters from Double Double that are especially important today.
Yeah.
The first one is, it's actually funny enough, it was chapter 11, and it was done on purpose. It's how to grow when it's slow. And I wrote it in 2009, right after the 2008, 2009 crisis, on how all the companies that I was coaching grew really quickly when everyone else was panicking.
Yeah.
And it's all the systems that companies need to scale in this really tough time right now.
Yeah.
And then the second one that I would give you that you can link and give away for free is chapter 12. And it's the highs and lows of CEOs. And it's why we ride this roller coaster and how to navigate the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship that, again, is very important today.
Yeah. I'll absolutely get those, and we'll attach those into the show notes.
Sure.
For anybody that's listening. So the first thing that I got a couple things here written down that I want to make sure that we hit, and then we can kind of go down rabbit holes as we find them. But the biggest thing is, we're friends on Facebook, and a lot of the content that you've been putting out is about the fact that you as the leader, you as the CEO, you can only control what you can control, and that you need to be focused right now on what you can be doing that you can be growing with. So as chiropractors, we've got brick and mortar locations. People have to physically come in. Some are closed down completely, like my office. Others are at 50, 60% capacity, kind of best case scenario. What would be your recommendations? Let's start first with the people that are just closed, either by choice or by government. Especially in Canada, I think that the offices are closed. They don't have a choice. So what is it that you would recommend those people be focusing on right now?
Yeah, so the CEO's title is Chief Energizing Officer, not Chief Executive Officer. It's to be the Chief Energizing Officer. So our role is to protect our energy and protect our confidence and protect our faith in ourselves and our economy and our market, our team, and to grow our skill set and our capacity as leaders, and then transfer that energy so that that momentum creates momentum.
Yeah.
So more important than anything right now is for the leaders to take care of themselves. And that's meditation, yoga, getting exercise, eating healthy. If you're going to have a drink, have 1, not 6. It's just taking care of yourself like a racehorse, right?
Right.
So right now, if I was shut down, I would be working on myself. I would be working on my skills. I would be devouring podcasts. I'd be devouring books and courses and thinking about the gaps that I have and where I can scale. I would be growing my team and giving them books and resources and helping to grow them. I'd also be working on my confidence. I'd be working on, anything I can do around mindset. Maybe laying out a new vivid vision. And then I would be working on the company. Maybe it's redoing the website, redoing the marketing collateral, looking at any of your SOPs or playbooks or systems that you use internally, cleaning up the office space and getting it freshly painted and done. Like, all of this time to do the spring cleaning in our business is really powerful, but we never have time to do it because we're so busy. Well, now you're not busy. Most people get too lazy. So I would really dive into that.
I heard a quote you said on another interview: speed of the leader, speed of the group. And I loved the idea of that. And that if you're driving forward, they have no choice but to follow. Like, people are looking for someone to lead. They're looking for someone to follow, to be inspired by. And I think that this is the moment to step up as a leader.
I learned that lesson back when I was at College Pro Painters, and it was a lesson that they took 4 groups of people, and we all had to do this kind of obstacle course. And 3 of the groups did it they were all in different areas. You couldn't see the other groups. Mm-hmm. And 3 of the groups the leader were told to do it very slow, very methodical. And then the 4th group was told to just fucking rip her and just give her and go as fast as they could. And what they did was they filmed it and they timed it. And then they came back in and they showed us all, and this was on video camera, they showed us all how the groups did. And one of the groups just destroyed the other 3. And it's because the leader decided to go quickly. Yeah. And it was that was where the analogy we were trained on, was the speed of the leader, speed of the group. Was if the leader's not driving forward and isn't energized and isn't protecting and isn't, visionary and isn't pushing, nor will anybody else. And more than ever right now, followers are looking to follow. You know, it's time for leaders to lead.
What's the quote that you said, the General Patton quote?
A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week.
I love that. I fall into that trap myself. And so I always have to remind myself to just execute and you'll figure it out.
Well, what's very typical of anyone who did really well in school is they tend to move more methodically and slower than people who were C students. Yeah. Because they're more worried about the perfect score, the perfect grade. They're worried about the A. And the reality is momentum creates momentum, not perfection. Yeah. No one has ever cared what anybody's university transcript was after we graduated. Yeah. No one has ever cared that you got 88 or 98% in chemistry in grade 12. Right. So the reality is it was just getting out the door that mattered almost as much as perfect. Now you can learn for the sake of learning, but you know, that marketing piece that has to be so perfect would get you better results if it went out 2 weeks ago versus 2 weeks from now. Yeah. You know, so I think that's where that whole adage comes from.
What I find with whenever I do put something out there, that whenever I'm putting it out there, it forces me to fix it if I don't like it, because I don't want anything out there that's not great. But putting it out there is what forces me to make the change. When I just sit and think about it, I just sit and think about it.
Well, putting it out there quickly doesn't mean poorly. What it means is a series of very quick handoffs. So I'll give you an example. If I had to write a really great, sales letter that I was going to email out to my entire list of 20,000 people, I could sit down and work on that letter and recraft the letter and work on the letter and look up sales copy and recraft the letter and figure out NLP and recraft the letter and get some humor and recraft the letter and work on some design. And it would take me weeks to pull that thing together. Yeah. Or I could walk around my house and do a recording over audio and then have it transcribed using otter.ai instantly, send it to my assistant, have her type it up. I could then take a look at what she typed up and I could add in some stuff into like the text markup or black line document. Yep. Then I could send it to a writer who could really make it pop and polish off the page. And then I could send it to an NLP specialist who could really weave it in. But those could be a series of 30-minute steps. Yeah. 30 minutes to my EA, 30 minutes back to me, 30 minutes with a writer, 30 minutes with an NLP specialist. I could have it back on my plate by the end of the day today. Yeah. Instead of 3 weeks. Right. So the perfect by one person takes a lot longer than a couple of quick little handoffs. It's like rugby where you just keep passing it down the line. It's kind of the same with anything in our business. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
With a lot of the offices, one of the parts that I really love about what you talk about and what you help people with is that COO piece. So most chiropractors, the best case scenario is that they have an office manager. Right. And, so I've got Leverage Media and I have my office. My office is 3 hours away and I'm only in there 3 days a month. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because I've got a great team and I've got an office manager / COO. Sure. And she was my executive assistant when I was there. And then when I left, she didn't need to be my executive assistant anymore. And so she kind of graduated to the office manager. Okay. What are some things that chiropractors can be thinking about when it comes to finding one and grooming the right COO?
Well, I think to your point, most chiropractors will never need a COO. Mm-hmm. They might need a general manager or a director of operations or at best a VP of operations, but not really a chief operating officer. Okay. I'm always very careful on the title I give people. You know, you can have the head of finance could be a controller or a director of finance or a VP of finance or a CFO. Gotcha. The head of marketing could be a marketing manager or a director of marketing or VP of marketing or CMO. Yeah. Be very careful with giving a big title to somebody with a smaller role. So I actually try to figure out what needs to get done, how much am I willing to pay for that, and then what's the title that matches what's getting done and what I'm paying for. Mm-hmm. So I think your other point that you made really clearly was most people should get an executive assistant or an office manager first, right? If you don't have an executive assistant, you are one. Right. And it's a very, very easy leverage point to hire an EA to free you up to work on, the higher ticket items.
That changed my life. Like when I was in Strategic Coach and Dan Sullivan and I have like the same 𝗁𝗵𝘁𝗀𝗀 score. And they
Yeah.
said at one of the events that I went to that the only reason he gets anything done is because somebody just follows him around and tells him what to do, whatever office he's at. And I'm like, that's what I need. And so when I went back, I'm like, I'm going to get an executive assistant. I don't know what I'm going to have him do, but I'm going to get one. And then she appeared. She was a old patient of mine. And I'm like, oh, you'd be perfect. And she just wanted part-time. So it all worked out. And now it's like evolved into this whole thing.
That's amazing.
But man, the executive assistant for a chiropractor, anybody who doesn't have one, you just don't know what you're missing. Like you'll never not have one if you.
It can be fractional and virtual as well. They don't necessarily have to be in person. It also doesn't have to be 40 hours a week. So you can kind of ease into it 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've been saying a lot this phrase recently, and that it needs to get done, but not by me.
Right.
Right. Like my house needs to be clean, but I'm not going to be cleaning the house and scrubbing toilets, and my yard needs to be done, but I'm not going to go trim hedges. And you can take that to the nth degree in your business, and then you can really get leverage.
Yeah, that's it. That is the way I try to look at my whole life, because I would always get so frustrated because when I try to do everything myself, a bunch of stuff just doesn't get done. And then I get mad at me instead of just finding people that are execute. Like I'm a visionary, not so much an integrator or an implementer. And so I have to surround myself with implementers to make sure that the vision gets done.
Well, or you end up getting it done, but you're not working on the high impact stuff.
Right.
Like I could do a lot of stuff, but really my highest leverage is media interviews, speaking events, or coaching CEOs or running the COO Alliance. That's the highest leverage for me.
Yeah.
All the other work that has to get done, if I was doing it, I would get it done, but at the expense of the bigger stuff.
Yeah. So if you were a chiropractor and ask me if you need some kind of context or answers, if you don't like quite know what exactly you would need done, but what would be your thought process? Like, let's say you had an executive assistant, what would be your thought process on getting an office manager or whatever the title is, somebody who could run the practice so that you could focus on what you need to focus on?
I would be looking to optimize and automate as many of the tasks as possible so that a person doesn't need to do them.
Okay.
Because you can delegate, like as an example, I could delegate, print out the paper and put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it and take it to the post office. I could optimize that process and outsource it all day long. Or we could do it using technology and zaps, and it could be automated and it wouldn't require a person at all. There's a lot of things that could be automated that don't require a person. My assistant used to phone all of my customers to get them to book their coaching times into my calendar, and she couldn't get a hold of them, and they leave messages. Now we just send them a link and they book their own times into my own calendar, and she controls my calendar flow, and it all just works out. Yeah. And then every once in a while she has to tweak things. So that's so I would be looking to optimize and automate as many processes as possible versus just delegating more.
Yeah. One of the things that's really helped me with leverage media, because we have so many different moving parts on the marketing side of things have to be used through Zapier. We have to automate them. There's no way that like anyone would have any time to do all of the little tasks that get done. And so because that was kind of forced upon us, it like opens up your brain to like, well, what else could I automate?
And so once you start automating things, so first is also stop, right? So it's stop, optimize, automate, outsource. So the first part is, do I even need to do it? Like, can we just stop it? And then if I'm going to continue doing it, can I optimize it so that you remove all the time in between the steps? And so each of the steps are simpler. And then after it's optimized, then can you automate it, right? If those things can't be done, can I outsource it, or then can I delegate it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good just exercise to go through, because there are so many tasks in a chiropractic office that are repetitive. Like we do a lot of the same thing over and over and over again, that there's a lot of wasted time or wasted effort or things like you said that just don't need to be done anymore. Just because they needed to be done 5 years ago or 10 years ago doesn't mean they still need to be done.
Well, I'll give you a great example of one. So I just got my left hip replaced 2.5 weeks ago, and the group that is taking care of the insurance for it, I'll get full reimbursement. The insurance company wanted a second opinion, and I already had two orthopedic surgeons had already said I need the hip replacement and a doctor. So I had 3 opinions. They wanted another group called Second MD, I think it was called, to, they wanted a different orthopedic surgeon to talk to my orthopedic surgeon and give their opinion.
Right.
And the group managing it all called them and said, have you ever, in the history of ever, had a single orthopedic surgeon contradict another orthopedic surgeon's work? Of course not. Like, no chiropractor is ever going to say, oh, the other chiropractor is wrong, because you don't want your name on it. You don't want to harm each other in the industry, right?
You would be surprised. You would be surprised.
Well, you wouldn't normally.
MDs do not do that. That is true.
And you wouldn't formally do it in a documented process. You might do it verbally, but you wouldn't, like, you know. So all of a sudden, this insurance company realized in all the second opinions they'd been getting, it had never overturned a first opinion. So what they were doing was actually just paying more money to get the same freaking result in the first place.
Right, right.
They canceled it because of me. Going forward, they're no longer even using this service anymore. They've cut all that waste out of the system.
Wow. Do you, just a side note, do you use Redirect Health?
I do. And it was David Berg that called them directly to handle it for me.
So Dave, I met him when I was in Phoenix a while ago, or maybe it was in LA, but he's a chiropractor as well. So we connected on that.
So David Berg and Janice Johnson, David's wife, were the ones that personally handled my entire process. And David called the head of the insurance group, which I won't name, but David is the CEO of Redirect Health. He identified the waste in the system, and they're changing the entire model now because of that.
That's great. So for chiropractors out there, you may want to look into Redirect Health as maybe a supplement to either your health insurance or other, or your group health insurance. It's just a really cool system. Probably not time to go into it right now, but look up Redirect Health, and it's chiropractor owned. So that's a good thing as well.
Cool.
I know what I was going to ask you about was, so in another podcast I listened to that you recently did, you were talking about in this time, there's going to be opportunities for acquisitions. And so I've been of the belief that, you know, for a lot, this economy has been good for the last 8 or 9 years. And there's still chiropractors that are in that bottom half of, you know, revenue or profit or whatever. And they're just kind of like hanging on, single doctor offices. And a lot of them are great doctors, but maybe just aren't really like cut out for like the business side of it. Maybe they just don't like it, or they're just not good at it, or whatever it is. So I think on the other side of this, there's going to be a lot of people that are like, you know what, like I really don't like being the business owner, or like they don't make it. Or what would be your thoughts on maybe like acquiring businesses or bringing on those people into your office as like staff doctors? Do you have any like thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I'd actually been working with a lot of I coach 18 CEOs, and I've been working with all of them over the last 6 to 8 months to move to cash, to pay off debt and shore up cash so that they could actually come in to do acquisitions once the downturn started. We just sensed with all the 3 economic indicators that I watched that we were getting ready to capitulate, and then the coronavirus just kind of pulled out the house of cards. So we're going to start that correction. So a couple things. Anyone who is 60 years old right now has gone through the 2001 and the 2008 market crashes, and they don't have another 5 years in them to rebuild right now.
Yeah.
So in 2001, the NASDAQ went down by 78%, and it took about 5 years to recorrect. It's going to take time for the market to come off hard, to stay down, and then to come out of this. And most of these 60-year-old chiropractors, 55-year-old chiropractors, they're done, man. They don't have another 5 years to rebuild. They would gladly just take what they can take and kind of pack it up at this point.
Yeah.
Second thing is, if they were looking to sell, they recognize the price has probably gone down. It doesn't have to go down, but because of fear, they recognize the price has probably gone down. So they'll take less for their business. The third thing is, most of them will take whatever a fair offer is, and they'll take some of it over time. So if you can buy a company and pay them 30% over the next 3 years, and then get bank financing for 70%, you can buy a lot of these practices with no money down. So it's a really good time to be able to do it strategically.
Well, I thought it was interesting that in the CARES Act that the $2 trillion bill that they just passed, part of what they passed was if you have an existing SBA loan, they'll pay your interest and principal for the next 6 months. But if you take out a loan up until I think it's like September 27th, anything that is closed with before September 27th, I'm pretty sure that they'll pay the first 6 months of that payment as well. So that's quite an opportunity.
Well, it is, and it's also not necessarily a great offer. Like it is if you're going to do it strategically. So debt is good until it's bad.
Yeah.
And the nervousness that I have right now is a lot of businesses, a lot of people, a lot of cities, states, and government are leveraged to the max already. And what they're doing now is leveraging their leverage. And I get nervous when people are taking out more debt to pay off their first debt. It's like, wait, you're taking out a loan to pay off your credit card debt?
Yeah.
The reality is more people need to actually get financial models in place to scale their business than probably to pay off the debt.
Yeah.
Than to just, and they'll always make the argument, well, it's cheap right now. It is cheap, but you still owe the money back.
Yeah, right.
And it can be a very, very, it's a dangerous model at times.
I guess I was talking about more if you were going to finance the 70% of acquiring a business.
Yes, it's great.
Yeah.
Especially, but I think more importantly is get the owner to take 30% over the next 3 to 5 years, so you don't have to put any of your cash down.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yes.
But if you're putting 30% of your money and taking bank debt, now you're leveraged.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was with you on the model. I was just saying using this SBA program that just started, you know, like if you can get the SBA guarantee plus the 6 months of payments, that's a pretty good run at it, you know? Yeah.
Amazing. And sometimes that's a way to actually hire some people too, right? I call it acqui-hiring. Acquisition.
Oh, yeah, right. That makes sense. And that's the way I think that most will probably be looking at it, because for these people that had practices that probably weren't really worth that much anyway, they were just able to like squeak out $100,000 a year out of it. It's more about there's going to be a lot of local practices. Like like my office is in Springfield, Illinois. If other Springfield, Illinois offices go out of business, it's not like those people are moving out of town. They'll probably stick around and they need a job in that area, and they'll bring their patients with them. It's almost like it pays for itself.
Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity for some roll-ups and consolidation in the chiropractic space, because for the longest time, and I think even right up until now, I'm certainly never been aware, and I've gone to chiropractors a few times. I had some big back issues 10 years ago when I was running my marathons. I think that there's a big opportunity to do a roll-up, because I can't think of any brands or chains of chiropractors. I can think of chains of dentists. I can think of chains of health medical clinics. I can think of chains of, almost everything, but I can't think of any, branded groups of massage places, but I can't think of any that are branded chiropractic.
There's a couple, but it's not a super profitable service. And so the people that are real smart usually like focus on dentistry or massage or things that are maybe a little bit more profitable.
Yeah, but I think it could be if you take the back office stuff over it and spread it over 10 locations, then it could be very profitable.
Oh yeah. There's a guy that I know that sold to private equity for they valued it $100 million.
Yeah. I think that's the key, though, is to take the normal economic waste that each one location has and now spread it over amongst a lot of locations.
Absolutely. Oh, shoot. I was going to say one more thing before we got into the PR stuff. Anyway, so the one, probably my favorite book of all of yours is Free PR. And I think that this is such a great opportunity for chiropractors to be getting more personal or public relations. One of the big, so we are a content marketing agency, so we help offices get their content out. I'm also a partner in a PR firm for chiropractors that help get them on the local news, and we're trying to expand out into like getting them into print as well. But I think that when we get on the other side of this, that there's chiropractic, but then there's the chiropractic lifestyle. So the chiropractic lifestyle is basically organic, healthy granola, making a strong host so that you can fight off a strong virus, right? Okay. And I think that there is not a person alive that isn't sitting at home wishing that they had less comorbidities, that their immune function was better, that they were healthier. And so I think when we get on the other side of this, that there's a real opportunity for chiropractic to kind of get back to its roots, where we talk more about the chiropractic lifestyle instead of just low back pain and neck pain. Yep. And so PR is going to be a big part of that. So if you could just kind of share some things with the chiropractors out there on things that they can be doing right now to help promote themselves.
Sure. So the first off, and I try to cover it in as good a detail as I can in the book 𝗶PR, because again, it was originally written as the manual for a company called grasshopper.com.
Mhm.
David Hauser, the CEO of Grasshopper, asked me to write a manual for him 10 years ago. That became the kind of kernel or the core of what became the book 𝗶PR. The first thing to understand is how the media makes their money. So the media makes money from selling advertising.
Mhm.
They don't make money from selling their podcast or their blog or their e-zine or even really the newspaper magazines or their TV shows. They make money from advertisers advertising their product and service on there. And the only reason these outlets get advertisers is because there's a lot of viewers or readers or listeners. So they need good content every day. So their content brings in the traffic, and that's how they can sell ads. So you're actually doing them a favor. Second thing is every journalist, every broadcaster, every podcaster, whatever, wakes up every morning and thinks, who the heck am I going to cover today?
Right.
And they're always running out of people to cover and people to write stories about. So we think that there's something called investigative journalism. There's not. There's these people that need to write stories every day and they need a new idea. So you're actually giving them an idea, you're making it easier for them. Every chiropractor has, probably 3 or 4 of the same stories. They all have their story of how they started their business, right? Which is the inspirational story. They all have their overcoming adversity story, which everybody likes because they can learn lessons on how they can overcome adversity in their lives as well. Every one of these chiropractors has a story of how their product or service has helped a customer and given them their life back. So that it's a very customer-centric story. And then potentially you've got kind of the roll-up or an emerging brand in an industry that's never really had one. Again, a couple of chains, but the vast majority of people, if you went to the closest mall, which would be closed, I guess, right now, if you went to the closest group of 100 people and asked them, can they name a chiropractic chain, 99 of the 100 won't come up with a name.
Right.
If I said to you, where would you go buy burgers? You'd say McDonald's or In-N-Out. Like, it's just, there's no brand. So I think if there's a story about building an emerging brand, even if it's 4 locations, that's a story.
Yeah.
So I would start with crafting stories around one of those 4 areas and go from there.
And then one of the things I hear you talk about a lot too is promoting the culture of your practice to help attract more or like higher level employees, which I think could kind of dovetail into what we were just talking about trying to attract maybe some of those chiropractors that that maybe don't make it on the other side. If there's stories out there about like why your chiropractic office is the best to work at, that's going to attract some talent.
It's going to attract talent, and it also is a good story for the general reader, because the general reader is going, if a chiropractic office can be a cool place to work, maybe my machine shop can be, or maybe my bread factory can be, or maybe my restaurant can be too. Yeah. So it becomes inspirational and educational at the same time.
And I also think that people that work at places like to see, like they would like to do business with someone that treats their employees well and has a good culture, and they feel like they can be a part of that too, I would guess.
Very much, very much.
Yeah.
The key is always to remember that your story is there for the journalist to educate or inspire the reader or listener or the viewer.
Yeah.
Right? It's never about you. It's about giving them good content that they're going to enjoy or they're going to learn from.
And so give some actionable, like, again, 𝗶PR is the playbook for this. And there's more detail than you said. I hope I did a good job of like explaining it. It's like step by step by step by step. So
well, I actually have a co-author on 2 of my books. I co-authored The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs with 𝗁𝗚𝗺𝗏. And then I co-authored 𝗶PR with one of my former coaching clients, Adrian. Adrian did a really good job with kind of explaining how to pour gas on the fire.
Right.
So he calls it the digital trifecta. If you think about any story that you get is like a log on a fire.
Yeah.
If there's no spark, if there's no flame, it's just a log just sitting there.
Yeah.
So the story is just the story until you put it on your website, you share it on Facebook, you share it on LinkedIn, you share it on Twitter 5 times on each platform over the next 6 months. Mm-hmm. And you pour some gasoline on that fire. So you drive advertising and traffic towards it. You email it out to your whole list, you send it to your suppliers, and you make sure that your customers and potential customers see it. So you kind of lit up the spark around that log.
Yeah.
That's when all of a sudden the media really is strong, because You know, the fact we were on Oprah back in 2003 is one thing, but the fact that we could talk about being on Oprah for 17 years is where the real leverage came from.
Yeah. You know, only so many people are going to be watching your live spot on the local news. It's now your job to distribute that and make sure that people, and a lot more people's eyeballs are on Facebook than they are on, you know, Channel 20 News.
Yeah. And we taught our company that back in the early days. We got a Bloomberg Newswire that covered us, and we ended up in about 45 newspapers in a single day. But the reality was most media outlets didn't see the Bloomberg wire. So we phoned 120 media outlets in 24 hours. And we said, hey, did you see us on the Bloomberg wire? And they're like, no. We're like, well, we'll email it to you right now. So we poured gas on that fire.
Nice.
So that's where the real amplification of media comes from, is having it linked to your press page, sharing it on your social platforms multiple times, buying ad traffic towards it so more people see it. You know, it's really, if you think that press is going to do anything with just getting you that one story or 5 stories, it's not.
Yeah. For, you know, obviously almost all of these offices are local, you know, one location offices. Is there anything that they can do outside of just local PR that you think would be worth the effort?
I guess it depends on why they're doing it. Are they doing it to build a brand to attract talent? Are they doing it to build a brand to attract customers? Are they doing
probably
it to
probably the brand to attract customers? Yeah.
Well, there's another reason to do it as well, is you build a brand so that you can sell the company for a higher exit value because it's got a brand around it. So if you're doing it to around customers, I think any media coverage is good. The key is to then share it on all the social platforms, email it to your list, add it to your press page.
Gotcha.
So it's really not as much about what press you're getting and how are you amplifying it.
Got it. I just happened to see this article the other day that I'd like your opinion on it. It seems like since everyone's home, the local news, their attention is like through the roof. Like they have more viewership than they've ever had, but
Sure.
their advertising is as low as possible because all these local businesses that advertise aren't spending money on advertising. What do you see? Like, do you think that this crisis will kind of reshape the media landscape? Will it kill off a lot of the outlets out there? Like, what are your thoughts on that, just as someone who watches the media?
Yeah, I think there's some huge opportunity right now with media outlets for businesses to go out and acquire and purchase media and purchase purchase marketing for cheap, because all of these outlets are starving right now and they're giving away their traffic, they're giving away spots. I think there's a big opportunity for companies on that.
Yeah. So if you're going to do paid media, this is the time to be reaching out for that. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You get a lot more for your dollar than you ever will.
Got it. So one of my mentors, 𝗵𝗺𝗇, he is a coaching client of yours, and he also has his COO in the COO Alliance.
Yeah.
And love Rob. He's such a good dude.
Great
like
guy.
I've known him for a while. What are some tools that people could utilize to help develop that second in charge, whether it's an office manager or someone like that?
Again, I think I would do a gap analysis. Like, what do you want them to be good at and where are they now? And then how do you fill in that gap? So it could be with books or videos or courses or coaching. It's really very dependent. There's, they could get better at marketing. They could be better at sales. They could be better at project management, better at situational leadership, better at coaching, better at delegation, better at time management, there's infinite number of areas. So I think you have to identify what are the gaps in what you need done and what's their skill set now.
Yeah. And I would imagine that the Second in Command podcast would be a good place to start for them to listen to.
It's too broad to say where should they get better.
Got it. Perfect. The other thing that I think that the chiropractors could really benefit from you is clarifying their vision. And so if we could talk a little bit about vivid vision and what you recommend for people to really set that vision.
Yeah, I would actually read the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, because I think it gives them a really good snapshot on vision, and then gives them some other tools on how to execute on the vision. It talks about the CEO-COO relationship as well. The idea with the vision is for them to lean out into the future and describe what their company looks like 3 years from now. Mm-hmm. Almost as if they're walking around their chiropractic office and they're describing operations, describing sales, describing marketing, describing the customer engagement, describing what the employees are saying. You're literally walking around your company describing what it looks like, acts like, and feels like 3 years out. And then once they can describe that, it becomes like a 4 or 5 page written description of their future. Then they can reverse engineer that and figure out how to make that come true.
That's great. I haven't read the Miracle Morning yet. I need to make sure that
You'll
I
like it. It's really good.
I bet. Kind of the last thing is just like selfishly, as a marketing agency that is dependent on chiropractors being in practice and actually like having revenue come in to be able to hire our services. What would be some recommendations of just like ways to pivot to add value while those offices might be closed over the next 2 or 3 months?
I think it's really getting close to your customer and really understanding what the needs of your customer are, the needs of your market, and asking them like, what do you need? What would make you happier? What would solve your pain? I think it's easier to sell to what they're buying than it is to figure out something and then how do you sell it?
That's true.
So it's really hard to pivot unless you know where to go. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Yeah.
So I call it kind of the letter to Santa Claus approach, that if you want to know what to put under the tree for your kids, ask them to write a letter to Santa and then buy the stuff that's on the letter.
Right. Love that. Cameron, any other tips? I know you got to get going for another interview, but any other tips that you'd give to people that are kind of looking for some direction in this crazy time?
Yeah, the one note that I keep kind of reinforcing over the years now has been that at the end of the day, none of this actually matters. This is just what we do to make money. We're all going to die. Mm-hmm. We're all just walking each other home. And I think the key is to just have a little fun along the way and enjoy the journey, because this is just what we do to make money. I think often we can take ourselves so seriously that we forget to have fun. That
is true. That's a great way to look at it. Man, Cameron, I can't thank you enough for this interview, and I can't thank you enough for all the hard work that you've done over the years. And like you've made my job in my businesses a lot easier by your wisdom and sharing that. And I just appreciate anybody who's putting their content out into the world and helping people that may not know as much as they do at that moment. And I think you just do such a great job of that. And I would recommend anybody following you, reading your books, investing in anything that you're doing, because I think it's all great.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you. And thanks for mentioning the Second in Command podcast too. It's a great way for them to get more resources as well.
Awesome, man. All right, guys, if you have any questions or if you want to add to the Santa Claus list and what you need help with, let me know and we'll talk to you on the next one.